What's up? It's Alec Torelli. Welcome back to an episode of the Hand of the Day. If you guys have hands you would like me to review on this channel, click the link below, submit them to me, and I'll be selecting the best ones and reviewing them for you guys right here. If you like my style of analysis and you like these videos, you want to take your game to that next level, absolutely free at consciouspoker.com, you can get access to my hand reading system, which is going to help you improve your game, better understand what your opponents are holding in each and every situation that you're going to face. It's my step-by-step process for making decisions at the poker table, totally free. Click the link below and get access right now. We also have a lot of awesome content at consciouspoker.com, 10 to 15 page blogs that I've written about poker strategy, pre-flop charts, push-fold charts, and much, much more. So get access to it right now at consciouspoker.com. For now, let's get back to the hand of the day.
Of the day.
Today's hand comes from one of my readers playing in a 5-10 no limit hold'em cash game. We're about 150, 160 big blinds effective, so pretty deep stack poker going on here. Now the villain in the hand opens in the cutoff, as you can see here, makes it a standard raise to 35. You're going to see this quite often in live games, people opening 3.5, 4x even, on the bigger side of opens. We're on the button now with ace-king off, and here I think we have a very clear 3-bet. This is definitely a strong enough hand that we're going to want to 3-bet for value. The question is, how big should we raise? Facing a $35 open, I'd like to see a 3-bet here a little bit bigger than what the hero decides, which is 100. We 3-bet to 100, but I think a better size here would be like 115, 120, maybe even 125. 100 is just too small, and we're giving our opponent too good of price to call our 3-bet. Now, the one case we have for going smaller is that we're in position, so it's okay if our opponent calls because we still get to play the hand in position, but I still would like to see a bigger 3-bet size here given how big he opened. If he made it 25, 100 would be fine. He made it 35, I'd like to see 110, 115. As played, we make it 100, our opponent calls, and we go heads up to the flop. The flop comes down ace-9-6 with 2 diamonds. Our opponent checks, and here we have a very clear c-bet. We're at the top of our range, one of the best hands we can have. We want to go ahead, charge draws, get value, protect our hand. Very clear c-bet here. I love what the hero did and decided to c-bet 1/3 of the pot. This does a couple things. It allows our opponent to call with a wider range of hands, allowing us to get value, and it allows us to c-bet with more hands. When we choose a smaller sizing, there are more hands that we can profitably c-bet. So this keeps our range wider, makes us more balanced, and makes us tougher to play against long term. If we c-bet something like 200, there's not that many hands that we're going to profitably c-bet that sizing with, so therefore it makes our range much more polarized. I much prefer to keep our range more balanced, choose a sizing of 80, and our opponent's not really going to know what we have. We still could have sets, we still could have top pair, we might even be betting kings or queens or 9x this way, given the sizing that we have. So I love this c-bet. Our opponent now calls, and we go heads up to the turn. With a pot of 400, the turn comes the very coordinated 8 of clubs. Now, our opponent checks, and we have a very clear bet again here. I think we still have to bet this turn. Some people would check this turn here, kind of fearful that this turn card is very coordinated, but it's really important to think about what types of hands our opponent can actually have that we're worried about. Sure, he could have something like 2-pair, but which types of 2-pair can he really have? He has to have suited aces to have 2-pair, and we block one of those aces in our hand with the ace of clubs. So the only real 2-pair he's going to have is something like ace-6 of spades, ace-6 of hearts, ace-9 of spades, ace-9 of hearts, ace-8 of spades, ace-8 of hearts. So there are a few combos of 2-pair he could have. Sure, he might have something like 9-8 suited, but those 2-pair and set combos are kind of unlikely, just because if our opponent does have those hands, he's so incentivized to check raise the flop with them. So I would discount some of his 2-pair hands. Straights are pretty much impossible. He's never going to have 7-5 or 10-7. It's just way too loose to call 3-bets with that hand, as well as call the flop with that hand as well. So I'm not really worried about a straight. He could have something like a set of 8s, but when you think about the hands that he has for value and you weigh that against the hands that he has as bluffs, there are a lot of hands that we have that we beat, there are a lot more hands that we beat and we can get value from. If he has something like ace 10, ace X suited, ace jack, ace queen, or maybe something like a pair or a flush draw, we want to protect our hand and get value from that. The other reason why I like betting this turn is it just makes us more balanced and tougher to play against. What would we do if we had a draw? Let's say we have something like 10 jack or a flush draw of diamonds or a flush draw of clubs or even like a 7, like 8-7. We might want to continue barreling here to build a pot and get fold equity when we have a strong bluff. So in order to balance that out, I would like to see ace king be value bet here. I'd probably check something like ace jack, ace queen even, and slow play that hand and try and bluff catch on the river or get value on the river. But when I have his hand as strong as ace king, I'm going to be value betting here and going for 3 streets when the river blanks. So I would go ahead and bet here. I like a size of 220, a little over half pot, building the pot here to make a sizable pot on the river. Now things get pretty tricky in this hand where our opponent check raises to 630. So here we have to say we are never ahead if our opponent has a hand for value. He's never going to check raise a worse 8 and a worse ace. He's not like finding out where he's at. He either has us beat, and in which case we're very behind, or he has a bluff, in which case we're ahead. Now it's important to realize here that all of his bluffs have equity. So he's never going to be bluffing with something like an absolute air ball. It's not an ace deuce deuce board where if he's bluffing, he could have just like complete air and we're either way ahead or way behind. If he is bluffing, he's going to have something like what he has. Queen jack of diamonds. Maybe he has jack 10 of clubs that he floated the flop with. Maybe he has 8-7, he's turning it into a bluff. Maybe he has 9-10 of clubs and he's turning it into a bluff. So a lot of his bluffs have a lot of outs against us. And so that makes this situation difficult to play. On one hand, there's a case for just jamming this spot here and forcing him to either put in all the money behind or fold out his equity. There's definitely a case for that if you think your opponent is wide enough to have enough bluffs that you can justify jamming. There also is a case for calling, and calling pretty much any river. It's really going to be hard for us to know what rivers to fold on. Let's say the river's a deuce of clubs. Is our opponent bluffing with 9-7, 8-7, or diamonds? What if it's the deuce of diamonds? Is he bluffing with 9-10 of clubs, or 6-7, or 8-7, or 9-7? It's so hard to know how to play this river that there is a case for shoving on the turn just so that we don't get outplayed. Now, a lot of this situation that I'm going over here with you is player dependent. You guys know, you guys could probably pinpoint at the table in your mind's eye certain types of players that when they check raise this turn always have a nutted range. They just always have it. Against those types of players, I'm just going to pitch my cards on the turn and fold, even though this is one of the better hands I can have. But against balanced players, against aggressive players, against players that want to put me to tough decisions and try and get me to fold top pair, I am liable just to shove this turn here in this spot and force them to either call it off way behind or fold out their equity. I think calling the turn, while it is a more balanced play, does open us up to being put in some tough spots. So you really have to decide here the types of opponents you're playing against and how you're going to proceed on the river. I think it's really important here that regardless of what action you take on the turn, that you have a clear plan on the river. One thing you might want to consider when making this decision on the turn is how are you going to play not just your hand, but your whole range. If you're going to call this turn with flush draws and some two pairs and some sets and some mixed draws, you're also going to want to call here with ace king to keep your range balanced. So I think if you're going to call here with a lot of hands on the turn, you want to throw this into your calling range. If instead you're going to be shoving here with your whole range on the turn, this could also be involved in your shoving range as well. It's really important to keep things balanced and use good judgment to figure out what types of opponents you're playing against and how you're going to exploit them in the best way possible. The hero opts to shove all in on this hand, gets called by Queen Jack of Diamonds, which at this point kind of has pricing himself into call. He's getting about 3-1. He kind of has to call here given how many outs he has. Maybe he's up again. Maybe his queen or jack are live. Maybe we have something like 8-7 and we're bluffing. Once he check raises this turn, it's kind of hard to fold. So he did put himself in a really tough spot here with queen jack. As played, he opts to call. The river blanks off. It's a deuce. and the hero wins himself a nice sized pot. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in this hand. It's very controversial. There are a lot of different ways we could play this hand. I'd love to hear from you guys. What would you do on the turn? Would you bet the turn? And when facing a check raise, what would you do? Would you just call, or would you jam it all in? How would you play the river? Leave your thoughts in a comment below, and I really look forward to seeing what you guys have to say. I always learn something from reading your comments, so please share your thoughts with me in this video. All right, guys, that's it for the hand of the day. Every Tuesday on the channel, be sure to subscribe. New hand of the day content coming your way, so more awesome content coming soon. And I will see you guys next week for the hand of the day. Thanks for watching.